Xie Yunqi was reborn, and the first thing he did upon opening his eyes was to break off our engagement. In my past life, he found me too prim and dull, instead pampering the woman he truly loved as his mistress. Even my own child followed suit, clamoring for that mistress to be their mother. This time around, he knelt before the altar. Even if father beats me to death, I will break this engagement. Yet when I'm married, he defied propriety to stop me. Ah, Ning, the one you fought so hard to marry should have been me. But he didn't know, beyond those eyes, not a single trace of that young general resembled me anymore. And I had never loved him. An unexpected assassination attempt sent me back to the year I turned 16. Opening my eyes in startlement, the room was shrouded in dark incense smoke. Curtains fluttered softly, the scene hazy like a dream. It was midday. Faint, indistinct chirps of cicadas drifted from the courtyard, and the footsteps of servants were barely audible. I reached out and tugged at the curtain, catching sight of a maid dozing at the edge of the bed. Be she? Surely. In the 4th year after my marriage, she had been betrothed to someone else. Yet now, her hair was styled in twin maid's buns, the look of an unmarried young woman. Miss? Have you slept well? She sprang to her feet, fetching a water-soaked cloth as she had done in my memories, gently dabbing my face to rouse me. I touched my chest, where a dagger had pierced my heart before death, blood splattering my face. Staring blankly for a moment, I suddenly asked urgently, "What year is it now?" She replied instinctively, "The 25th year of Chongyuan. Today is the 17th day of the 4th month. The 25th year of Chongyuan. The 17th day of the 4th month." I remembered correctly. Xie Yunqi, my betrothed since childhood, had come to propose marriage at this very time. Sure enough, the next moment, Bishi's face lit up with joy. "Miss, the Xie household sent word. They say young Master Xie will personally come to propose marriage in a few days. Master and mistress are overjoyed. They've had preparations made long ago. The mistress requested that you remain at home these days, attending to your duties without going out. Should any urgent matters arise, simply instruct us to handle them." Of course I'm delighted. The Xie family is a distinguished lineage. Elder Master Xie commands great respect as a veteran statesman who served 3 reigns. His son, Xie Yunqi, is now a prominent minister in the court, not to mention the current Xie Yunqi. At 6, he composed poetry with effortless eloquence. At 10, he became a disciple of the sage of calligraphy, Qi Yuji. At 16, he claimed the top prize in the imperial examinations. That year, at the end of the long street, the newly crowned top scholar wore his ceremonial cap, robed in the imperial crimson, mounted upon a fine steed. The people praised. 12 streets before, towers and pavilions. Who wouldn't gaze upon the divine? Our Shen family was already of noble lineage. The marriage alliance with the Xie family, arranged over a decade ago, was universally praised as an excellent match. I sat motionless at the table, staring blankly at the light and shadow outside the door. The sun stretched the doorframe's shadow long and thin. In that sunlight, I recalled the city ablaze with fireworks that year, the frantic crowd, and that spirited young man. Then, the bell beneath the eaves chimed crisply, jangling away my melancholy thoughts. In that instant, I knew with crystal clarity, this time, I would not marry Xie Yunqi. I refused to endure daily cold stares, growing to loathe each other. I refused to become a bitter couple when we each have our own joys. I refused to bear another child who cries out for another mother. Clutching the marriage contract, I rose just as a frantic maid rushed in. "Miss, it's terrible. The Xie family has arrived, saying they want to call off the engagement." On my way to the front hall, my mind raced. Why would they suddenly reverse course today? when the betrothal was supposed to happen days from now? The only explanation I could fathom was that Xie Qiyun, like me, had also reborn to his youth. It seemed this time, not only was I determined to sever this ill-fated bond, but Xie Qiyun was even more urgent than I. He knew all too well that by obeying his parents' command, enduring family pressure and reputation, and marrying a woman he didn't love, he had missed out on the woman he truly cherished. For many years afterward, he could only gaze at objects and think of her. Every word, every sentence, every painting in that study was of her. That woman, Zhuang Weining, daughter of the fifth-rank censoring chief, whose marriage to Xie Yunqi was forbidden by his family due to social class prejudice. I had never cared. In fact, during our second year of marriage, I had even suggested to Xie Yunqi that he take a concubine, feigning interest in Miss Zhuang. But who could have known that the usually gentle Xie Yunqi would suddenly change his expression and fly into a rage? How could she become someone's concubine? Don't you dare humiliate her. I didn't like that Xie Yunqi. When he lost his temper, his eyes resembled those of a wild beast, devoid of starlight and brilliance, bearing no resemblance to my Yanqi. So, I never brought it up again. Years later, however, that Zhuang Weining quickly married and divorced, seemingly having suffered wrongs. Xie Yunqi placed her in an outer residence, a two-courtyard house with meticulously selected servants and maids. During those days, he often returned late at night. I simply assumed his official duties kept him busy. As for the faint, lingering scent of agarwood on his clothes, I dismissed it as merely passing through an alley and accidentally picking up the fragrance. Until my 5-year-old son, whom I had carefully nurtured, impatiently pushed away the ink and brush from my hands, shouting angrily, "Aunt Weining never acted like you. You always force me to learn this and that. I don't want to learn. It's all your fault for not letting Aunt Weining in. She can't be with me every day." I stood frozen, brush in hand, until a drop of ink seeped into the brick floor before snapping back to reality. I stared at him as if he were a stranger. My husband kept a mistress hidden away, and my child saw her daily, yet no one told me. Why? I'm not the kind of mistress who can't tolerate others. I said long ago that taking a concubine was no big deal. Why make it so humiliating? In my past life, I spent my final days trying to divorce Xie Yunqi. A single divorce petition was enough to shake 2 great clans. The relentless pressure and coercion nearly broke me time and again. Yet I wrote petition after petition, even though Xie Yunqi never once looked at them. Now, looking down as I rounded the corridor corner, all that remained in my hand was this worn marriage contract. Before I even reached the front hall, I heard my father's voice, thick with anger. "Xie family brat. Our clans have been allied for generations. This marriage has been arranged for decades, known to all under heaven. Now you come here out of nowhere to break it off? Where do you think you're leaving my Shen family's reputation? My Shen family's daughter, if not for this betrothal, suitors would have worn out our doorstep long ago. She is not unmarriageable, which is why she was promised to your Xie family. Do you realize how the world will view her because of your withdrawal?" Xie Yunqi's voice was dry as he replied, "I will compensate her. I will also declare to the world that this withdrawal is solely my decision, that I am unworthy of Ning. Her reputation will remain untarnished." You. Seeing father's beard quivering with rage as he pointed at Xie Yunqi, ready to unleash more scolding, I lifted the curtain and spoke at the right moment. "Young Master Xie is correct." My gaze met his fleeting glance before turning to my father. "Father. He is right. He truly is unworthy of me, and I refuse to marry him." Gathering my courage, I finally uttered these words before my ever-strict father, both in this life and the last. In my past life, I knew only to accept my fate. Even when I met someone I admired, I dared only to watch him from afar. From the moment I understood, I knew I was destined to become a wife of the Xie family. Speak no more than necessary. Never be rash. Never overstep boundaries. Be gentle, respectful, frugal, virtuous, and prudent. These shackles bound my entire existence. Looking back on my past life, the most daring thing I ever did was secretly erect a wordless stele for Banichi after he died in battle. These words startled not only my father, but Xie Yunqi as well. He likely never imagined I would refuse to marry him. After all, in my past life, the moment I saw his eyes, all resistance to this marriage vanished. I even sent people to inquire about his preferences, growing quite fond of him before I was married in all things Xie Yunqi knew well. I would often stare into his eyes until he grew impatient. During our nightly trysts, I would cover the lower half of his face, leaving only those eyes exposed. Lost in passion, he would gaze at me, his expression wavering. And in those moments, I would always call his name, tears streaming down my face. Achi. Achi. I never addressed him thus by day, nor did Xie Yunqi care for it. Later, I often thought, this life is what it is, with no turning back. I might as well live well with him. Yet who could have imagined it would all prove futile and self-degrading? Lifting my skirt, I knelt before my father without hesitation, head bowed low. My posture spoke volumes, so I said not another word. Yet beside me, Xie Yunqi, for some reason, saw my state and flashed a look of resentment and fury. I heard his knuckles crack as he clenched his fists. How strange. If we shared the same resolve, why not unite our strength? What was there to be angry about? As if competing with me? He raised his voice. My father has already beaten me once. But Uncle Shen, even if you and my father beat me to death, I will still call off this marriage. A forced marriage brings no happiness. This union is not my wish. Even if Ning were to marry me, I would never treat her kindly. Do you truly think you could bear that? Such words were truly outrageous. My father, forgetting his status as an elder and his usual composure, bent down, pulled out a pair of shoes he hadn't washed in days, and hurled them at Xie Yunqi's head. Get out! Get out of here! He pointed trembling fingers outside, then gestured for him to hand over the marriage contract. Xie Yunqi promptly produced the marriage contract. Both his copy and mine were reduced to ashes in an instant. The smoke-like embers drifted down, swirling in circles before settling on our sleeves. We both reached out to brush them away. But in the instant we looked up, our eyes met. That moment lasted but a fraction of a second. Yet it felt unbearably long. He stared intently into my eyes, searching for something, while I simply looked back at him, utterly calm, without a ripple. When Xie Yunqi left, I was leading my horse, about to head out. He strode up, seized my reins, and demanded without preamble, "Why did you say you wouldn't marry me just now?" I snatched the reins back, amused by his intensity. "This marriage isn't your choice," I replied. "Naturally, it isn't mine either. You don't want to marry me. I don't want to marry you. What's so strange about that?" He murmured, "Wrong. It shouldn't be like this." Observing his expression, I suddenly wanted to ask, when I died in my past life, why did you leap forward to block the poisoned arrow for me? Had you not intervened, you wouldn't have perished. But now I have more pressing matters. Yan Qi is still alive, whether he recognizes me or not. I must find a way to save him. The karmic ties of my past life no longer matter. I swiftly mounted my horse, jerked the reins, and dug my heels into its flanks. With a piercing whinny, the steed bolted forward. Xie Yunqi stared blankly at the crimson-clad rider vanishing like a whirlwind into the dust. He had never known Ning possessed such mastery of horsemanship. In their past life, she had only known needlework, poetry, and painting, no different from any other well-bred young lady of the world. Suddenly, blurry images flooded his vision again. He seemed to have been struck by an arrow, his body covered in poisonous rashes. Yet he couldn't make out anything clearly. He couldn't even recall how he had died in his previous life. All he knew was that when he opened his eyes, he had returned to the present. All he remembered now was marrying Ning in his past life, missing out on Zhuang Weining, and later regretting it deeply. Fortunately, they had only been married for half a year before he somehow got a second chance. Now, in this new life, all the wrong paths would be set right. He would spend his life with the one he truly loved, and the future seemed bright and promising. Yet why did a sense of panic linger in his heart? As if something were quietly slipping away? Xie Yunqi didn't know what he was panicking about. But he reassured himself, in this life, he would surely get his wish, marry his beloved. He had nothing left to lose. Riding my horse to a spot not far from the Yen residence gates, I hesitated for a long time, unable to proceed. I had met Yan Qi's younger sister a few times at poetry gatherings for women. I had hoped to see her through this connection, thereby indirectly meeting Yan Qi and warning him of the dangers ahead. 15 years ago, during the Battle of Luming, Yan Qi's father fought to the death defending against the Western Di tribes. Though victorious, he perished on the return journey to the capital. The following year, Yan Qi's uncle marched north to repel the enemy and fell on the battlefield. When war erupted again, Yan Qi's eldest brother, barely 16, volunteered for the front lines. After 6 years of battle, he never returned. Thinking of this, I couldn't spare another thought and quickened my pace. Just then, a carriage halted behind me. A charming young woman in pink, leaning on the carriage rail, lifted her head and saw me. Her eyes lit up, and she deftly hopped down. "Miss Shen?" She gathered her skirt and scampered toward me like a rabbit. "How did you end up here?" I pointed at myself. You know me?" Truthfully, though we'd met a few times, we'd never spoken. And with so many noble ladies in the capital, it was common not to recognize one another at grand banquets. She smiled and nodded, warmly pulling me into the mansion. She hurriedly ordered refreshments while chattering away, bustling about in a flurry. A strange feeling welled up inside me, though I couldn't quite pinpoint what was odd. That is, until I found myself seated in the pavilion. Before long, Yan Qi's eldest sister-in-law arrived, followed by his aunt. They all looked at me with smiles, their expressions filled with nothing but friendly scrutiny. Finally, even Lady Yan herself was alerted. I hastily apologized. It should have been the younger generation paying respects to the matriarch. But we arrived in haste without prior notice, so it would have been improper to disturb you unannounced. Lady Yan's hair was streaked with silver, combed to a glossy sheen. Her eyes sparkled with vitality, and she radiated a vibrant energy. She patted my hand. "Not at all. You're Shen Ning? You're quite lovely. Whatever you fancy, just tell the kitchen. This old woman won't be in your way any longer. You young people enjoy yourselves." With that, she strode away with remarkable agility. Turning back, I saw a child with a small braid peeking at me from behind the pillar. Yan Mi beckoned to him. The boy, about 5 or 6 years old, came running over in a flash. "This is my eldest sister-in-law's child. Her name is Sister Shen." The boy, Yan Lin, obediently called out, then piped up again in a clear voice, "Sister looks just like the painting." Yan Mi immediately covered his mouth and explained, "He means you look like the fairy in the painting. That's how he compliments people." I brushed it off, ruffling his hair as I addressed Yan Mi. "Yan." She caught on instantly. "Call me Man, that's what everyone at home calls me." Yan Mi, Man, both lovely names. Man. I probed indirectly, feigning curiosity. "Your brother. She slapped her forehead in panic. Early this morning, there was an incident at the Northern Patrol camp. My brother left at dawn and likely won't return in time. Otherwise, stay for lunch. He'll definitely be back after noon. I'll send word to your family immediately. She rose to leave, but I quickly held her back. No need. The sun blazed across the boundless sky, clouds drifting through azure expanse. As I turned to grasp her sleeve, someone appeared on the corridor steps as if materializing out of thin air. First came a pair of powerful, knuckle-defined hands. Then a figure clad in black robes embroidered with golden thread, a jade pendant of superior quality hanging at the waist. A golden crown held his jet-black hair high, framing eyes sharp as a falcon's and thin, straight lips. His features were strikingly handsome, yet his entire aura carried the chill of ice-capped peaks. Suddenly, he smiled at me. That smile infused him with a touch of earthly warmth, like the rising sun over snow-capped mountains, dazzling and radiant. I stood there stunned for a moment before rising to curtsy before him. The brother Yenmi had claimed was unable to return in time suddenly appeared as if sent from the heavens. Seeing my bow, the tall, sturdy youth seemed somewhat flustered. Miss Shen. No need for formalities. I'm looking for my sister. His words were slightly breathless, his chest rising and falling slightly. Yenmi jumped up excitedly. I'll go check if the kitchen is ready. To avoid gossip, she nudged Yenlin. You stay here. I clutched the envelope in my sleeve, a letter I'd written through the night. In my past life, he could have withdrawn safely after his great victory. But later, a deputy general betrayed the army, luring Yan Qi to pursue the enemy. They fell into an ambush deep in the mountains, trapped by heavy snowfall. Not a single soldier survived. My purpose here is not Yan Qi alone. Countless sons of the Yan family have fallen on the battlefield. For a century, the Yan army has guarded the borders of Daki, protecting countless common folk. I cannot bear to see that old lady mourn her black-haired son again, nor can I bear to see tens of thousands of soldiers betrayed by treacherous men, buried in foreign soil. I clenched the envelope tightly, meeting his gaze as I spoke plainly. General Yan, I know you're to march north in a month. You may not know me, but every soldier in the Yan family army knows your name. Perhaps you'll think what I'm about to say is nonsense. But I must tell you. I had a dream 2 nights ago. After much deliberation, I used the dream as my pretext to recount the events of his past life. After finishing, I hastened to explain, General, it matters not if you do not believe me. I only hope that should you encounter the events from my dream, you will recall what this humble maiden has said today. Then, perhaps, you might reconsider or prepare for both possibilities. I believe you. Yan Qi spoke suddenly, his expression grave. Thank you. I came specifically to hear this. You believe me? I froze, staring at him. A gentleman does not speak of supernatural phenomena. Had I not experienced it myself, I doubt I would have believed these words either. His ears suddenly flushed crimson, and he looked flustered again. I will be careful. Having said what needed to be said, I took my leave to return home. Yan Qi followed behind me at a distance, escorting me all the way to the door. At the entrance, I suddenly turned and quickened my pace. Yan Qi's eyes widened, his hand instinctively reaching out to steady me. But I stopped right before him. General Yan. My heart skipped a beat. This was improper, but I couldn't care less. Summoning my courage, I spoke the words I'd never had the chance to utter in my past life. I broke off my engagement today. I mean no offense. I just happened to end it today. I've told everyone, the pancake vendor on the street, the flower seller by the roadside, even the puppy just crawling out of its den. He suddenly reached out and took my wrist. Holding it gently, "I'm glad you told me. I will return safely. With life and death uncertain, and his homeland yet to be reclaimed." He could not speak. His shoulders bore the weight of heavy responsibility. I bowed, "May the general be invincible in battle, triumph in every conflict, and return victorious soon." After that day, I returned home only to be punished by my father, forced to kneel in the ancestral hall. For 3 full days, only my mother would stand outside the hall, watching me as I secretly shed tears. In my past life, I once confided in her that I didn't like Xie. I asked my mother, "Do you believe in love at first sight?" Amidst the gathering lantern light, that young general appeared like a moon among the clouds. His arrival was a gathering of the Milky Way, impossible to look away from. My mother only paused for a moment, then whispered, "Mother knows." Yet she still dared not speak a word for me, afraid to defy my father. All she could say was, "Ning, this is your fate as a Shen family daughter. You have no choice but to marry Xie." I never blamed her, for I knew she had lived her entire life cautiously and timidly. Her weakness was also her fate. Had Xie not taken the lead this time, and had I not resisted fiercely, my father would never have agreed to call off the engagement. For that, I owe Yinchi my deepest gratitude. 3 days later, as I stepped out of the ancestral hall, I fell gravely ill. During my convalescence, my mother kept vigil by my bedside, silently wiping her tears with a handkerchief. I didn't try to comfort her. She always cried easily, and father disliked her tears. He preferred the coquettish consort Lu and the alluring consort Chen. Naturally, mother had no need to compete for such favor. My brother now held a position in the Ministry of Revenue. In the past, my brother and I could not rely on our mother's status to gain favor. Now, I hoped she might find honor through her son's achievements. On the day I recovered, father summoned me first. His opening words came crashing down like a thunderclap. "In 2 days, your father will arrange another fine marriage for you." I've always understood my father. Whether legitimate or concubine-born, daughters are merely brocade adorning his official path, merely a matter of marrying well or marrying better. In that moment, I suddenly thought of Yanqi. If he, never mind, my father would surely look down on him. Despite the Yan family's glorious military achievements, generals stationed abroad remain distant from the heart of court power. How could they compare to the weight held by civil officials within the palace? Moreover, the Yan family currently has only Yanqi to rely on. He has yet to grow into the renowned general destined for future glory. But my daughter just had her betrothal annulled. Isn't it a bit hasty to discuss another match so soon? Humph. You know that, don't you? If you were not so useless, how could the Xie family have broken off the engagement? Since waking, I've been lost in confusion. Save for matters concerning Yanqi, what purpose does this second chance hold? To be betrothed anew, then wed a man I do not love? To bear his children, watch him surround himself with concubines, and waste another lifetime in this futility? Yet in this moment, I know with clarity what I desire from this life. I want the freedom to rule my own destiny. I want to live this life without regret, living it to the fullest. Father, what if I told you that what I can offer you far exceeds what you'd gain from marrying off your daughter? Seeing his confusion, I spoke 6 words. When the sunflower reaches 15 days, the floodwaters pool. Father, wait patiently and see if your daughter's words prove true to the letter. With that, I bowed and withdrew. Only with sufficient bargaining power does one earn the right to negotiate. These past days, I've heard that Xie Yinchi has thrown the Xie household into utter chaos over his engagement to the daughter of a minor official. Word has it the patriarch of the Xie family, ashamed of his son's disgrace, feared he might cause further embarrassment. Besides, with only this one heir, they couldn't push him too far. Thus, they relented, agreeing to send the betrothal gifts after the Mid-Autumn Festival. Everyone says Xie Yunqi used to be disciplined and courteous, gentle as jade, and extremely filial. Now, first he breaks off an engagement, then disregards social standing to insist on marrying someone from a lowly family, who knows if he's not been bewitched. Qiu Yun chattered on while combing my hair. Enough. Qiu Yun. From now on, don't tell me about his affairs. They have nothing to do with me. Today, the manager of Chunyan Pavilion sent word that a new batch of jewelry had arrived. I hadn't expected to see Xie Yunqi's beloved, Zhuang Weiying, so soon. As I held a light jade-green agate tassel hairpin, she spoke softly from behind me. She wore a spring-green robe, her water-white skirt embroidered with blossoms of spring begonia. Her fair face was as delicate as a willow in the breeze. I stared at her for a long moment before hazily recalling that she was the same concubine from my past life, the one who had sought me out twice in secret, each time flaunting her power and provoking me. Seeing my silence, she spoke again. I saw this hairpin first. Might I have it? I flicked the tassel and asked. Did you pay for it? No. She shook her head. I turned to the shopkeeper. Do you have a rule here that whoever sees an item first gets it? The shopkeeper clasped his hands. Never heard of such a rule. Did you hear that? I looked at her. Expression calm. Just then, Zhuang Weiying's maid slammed her hand on the table. How dare you? Do you know who you're dealing with? Our young mistress is the future daughter-in-law of the Xie family. You've got no eyes. How dare you try to take something from our young mistress? I looked at Zhuang Weiying. She bit her lip lightly, her expression filled with resentment. Xie Yunqi's recent indulgence had emboldened her for days, and she hadn't expected anyone to dare disrespect her like this. Truth be told, I probably understood Zhuang Weiying better than Xie Yunqi himself. He believed he'd fallen for a gentle, resilient white lotus. Little did he know that beneath that white exterior, darkness had long since taken root. Zhuang Weiying was far from the pure, innocent facade she presented. Otherwise, how could she have repeatedly exploited servants in her past life? How could she have made me witness Xie Yunqi's adoration for her, my son's affection for her, and his loathing for me? My loathing for her was confined to my past life. But after exchanging just a few words now, I despise her in this life too. Some people you simply can't stand at first glance. I flung the hairpin to the ground. Under her tear-filled gaze, I raised my foot and crushed it to pieces. What are you, anyway? What I set my sights on, I'll grind to dust and trample flat, never give to another. Apparently caught off guard by my ruthless arrogance, Zhuang Weiying clutched her handkerchief, her face alternating between crimson and pallor. She gritted her teeth. No wonder Yunqi wanted to break off the engagement with you. He must have known about your tyrannical temper and vicious nature. Her words meant nothing to me. I smiled expressionlessly, picked up another hairpin, and held it up to her head. Do you like it? It suits your temperament quite well. Then, meeting her gaze directly, I loosened my fingers. The hairpin fell to the floor. Furious, Qiu Yun lifted her skirt and stomped heavily on it. I picked up a white jade bracelet and held it against her wrist. How about this? Do you like it? I tossed it aside. The tinkling sound of shattered jade filled the air, a sweet relief to the heart. After repeating this several times, she finally seemed to grasp that I was humiliating her. Yet she endured it, even managing to speak with a smile. I suppose you've learned that Yunqi would risk everything to marry me. After all, the shame of Miss Shen's broken engagement demands someone to vent upon. Only, you shouldn't have chosen me. Leaning against the jewelry counter, I replied lazily, so? What can you do about it? As the words left my lips, She suddenly drew near. The next instant, she grabbed my hand with force, then seemed to be shoved hard, crashing heavily to the floor. My hand froze midair. Before I could react, an angry voice erupted behind me. "Wei Ning! Are you all right?" Xie Yunqi swept past me like a gust of wind, rushing to the woman on the floor. "Yunqi. I'm fine. Miss Shen did not mean to. I tripped on my own." Only then did Xie Yunqi notice me. When he lifted his gaze to meet mine, he instinctively released Zhuang Weining. Zhuang Weining's expression darkened. She bit her lip and let out a soft ouch. "What's wrong?" Xie Yunqi finally snapped back to attention, his gaze falling on her foot. He stood up abruptly. "Shen Ning, the decision to call off the engagement was entirely mine. If you have grievances, take them out on me. Why pick on an innocent, defenseless woman?" I looked up at him. It was her. I was about to say she did it herself, but suddenly remembered a similar scene from my past life. Back then, 5-year-old Yuer unexpectedly insisted I accompany him to a puppet show. Only upon arriving did I realize my child had pretended to be bored just to trick me out of the house for her amusement. Later, using the same tactic, she lunged at me before collapsing heavily to the ground. Xie Yunqi happened to witness it. Before I could defend myself, Yuer suddenly cried out, "I saw it. It was Mother who pushed Aunt Weining down." I stared at him as if struck by lightning, all strength to argue gone. Never before had I doubted myself so deeply, questioning whether I truly was such a failure. Xie Yunqi, upon hearing this, demanded an apology without a second thought. The thought struck me, and I blurted out, "So what if it was me?" I can't stand the look on her face. The moment she gets close to me, I feel sick to my stomach. You should ask her why she insists on getting so close to me. Is she just asking for it? Xie Yunqi was so flustered he couldn't speak for half a moment. What a buzzkill. A perfectly good day. And then I run into these two. I turned to leave, only to collide head-on with a warm chest. The person seemed to be rushing somewhere, still slightly out of breath. "Ning," the voice was warm as the person steadied me. I looked up, my eyes brightening. "Yan Qi? How did you end up here?" He lowered his head, gently touching my forehead with the back of his hand. "Are you better?" I was so worried. "I'm fine. I've been fine for ages." I patted my forehead and smiled. Just then, someone suddenly tugged my sleeve from behind. I lost my balance and nearly fell backward. But Yan Qi caught me. I turned to see Xie Yunqi holding my sleeve, his expression odd, as if he didn't understand why he'd overstepped like this. I pulled my sleeve away unhappily and moved further from him. Xie Yunqi suddenly spoke. "That day, you wanted to break off the engagement too. Was it because of him?" He lifted his icy gaze. If it had been a few days ago, he could have openly claimed to be my fiancé. But now, he was merely an outsider. He pressed his lips together and said no more. The situation was awkward, but no matter how uncomfortable it became, he didn't move an inch. It seemed he feared neither humiliation nor embarrassment, unwilling to see me find another suitor so swiftly. "What business is it of yours?" I frowned. "What right do you have to question me?" Yan Qi narrowed his eyes, sizing him up. "So you're the blind one?" He added. "Blind indeed. To mistake a worthless fool for a treasure." Xie Yunqi's face darkened. Without a word, and without bothering to help Zhuang Weining, he swept his sleeve and left. Yan Qi pulled out silver and tossed it to the shopkeeper. "I'll take everything," she trampled. Only after leaving the shop did I laugh. "You seem so dull. But your words are surprisingly sharp." Yan Qi smiled at me, suddenly pulling out a hairpin. "The shopkeeper said the money was hard to come by. So he gave me this hairpin as As compensation, would you like? He stammered through a string of words, unable even to lie convincingly. I took the hairpin from his hand and deftly pinned it in my hair. Then I turned to him and asked, "Does it look good?" "Beautiful." He nodded. I curved my eyes. "Oh. I think it's beautiful too." Only later did I learn that day, after hearing from Yanmi, that I'd finally ventured out after several days of illness. Yanqi had rushed all the way back from the outskirts just to see me once. On the day Yanqi set out for battle, I avoided the crowd, deliberately waiting until the army had passed through the city gates before riding swiftly to catch up. But the crowd was overwhelming. Nearly the entire Yin clan had come to see the army off. I couldn't exchange a single word with Yanqi, only trailing behind the procession, reins in hand. At the very front, Yanqi sat tall on his horse, leaning forward patiently as the old matriarch imparted her wisdom. The old woman, her back slightly stooped, eyes brimming with tears, smiled at her grandson. "Child, all under heaven may choose not to fight, may be cowardly, may stand by as spectators. But the sons of the Yen family must never retreat, must never abandon their duty. Remember this, you guard the lives of countless common people. Grandmother longs for your return. Return victorious." Yanqi nodded solemnly. "Your grandson remembers." His gaze kept drifting backward. Lady Yan understood, wiping away her tears. "Go now. Say farewell to your beloved." The army marched on, orderly and unwavering, not stirred by their commander's brief return. Yanqi's horse galloped along the road, kicking up clouds of dust. Only when he was before me did I recognize him. "Yanqi!" I stood on tiptoe, waving my riding crop. Yanqi leapt from his horse, his fiery red cloak billowing behind him. He strode toward me, pulling me into his embrace, so forceful, yet so cherishing. But it lasted only a moment before he released me. Knowing time was precious, I wasted no words. From my bosom, I pulled out an amulet and a letter, pressing them into his chest. I had feared I might never get the chance to give them. Yanqi touched the amulet at his heart and looked at me deeply. "I will return safely." I bowed once more. "May the general return victorious soon." I watched the army retreat until the ranks merged with the distant sunset, then turned back. I had written down everything I knew and given it all to Yanqi, along with the amulet. The rest I could only entrust to the gods and Buddhas, praying for their mercy to grant him a new lease on life. The days that followed saw my father and I locked in a protracted tug-of-war that lasted half a month. After the Great Flood in Hongtong County, he volunteered to lead the relief effort. Following the plan I outlined in my letter, he executed each step meticulously, ultimately saving the entire city's populace. The emperor bestowed great honors upon him. Afterward, he pressed me relentlessly to reveal my source of information. I could not answer. "Father, I told you it came from a dream. Remember only that. I would never harm you, nor do anything detrimental to the realm." He pondered for a long time, finally asking only, "What do you wish to gain from me?" Gain what? Truthfully, not long ago, I too had fantasized. With this opportunity to know the future, why not orchestrate events from behind the scenes to achieve my goals? But upon further reflection, merely wielding these memories to control the fates of a few lives is already remarkable. To go further would only mean scheming for the most exalted position in this world, marrying into the imperial family. Why not be bolder? Why not, as a woman, plot a grand path? Impossible. As impossible as climbing to the heavens. Within these walls, where every rule was made for men, attempting it alone would be like an egg striking a stone. I looked at him calmly. "My request is simple. Father, from this day forward, you must not interfere in my marriage. Whether I marry a noble prince or a beggar, It shall be my choice alone. Father, you need not worry. I was born into the Shen family, with my mother and brothers among its ranks. I would never ruin my own future and bring shame upon our clan. From that day on, he fell silent and never interfered again. 3 years passed swiftly, and before we knew it, the deep winter of the 28th year of Chongyuan arrived. I recall the news of the Yan family army's complete annihilation at Pelican Mountain arrived in the capital on the 27th day of the 12th lunar month, delivered by an 800 Li express courier. That day, heavy snow blanketed the capital, feathers of white drifting ceaselessly. I had climbed the city walls early. Qiuyan held my crimson cloak and replaced the cold hand warmer in my hands. Miss, it's so bitterly cold. What are you waiting for up here? Qiuyan asked, puzzled. I blinked, shaking snowflakes from my lashes, and whispered softly, waiting for heaven's favor. From dawn until deep into the night, the palace lanterns on the city walls cast their light upon the snow, like moonlight spilling down. No urgent dispatch. No bad news. Did Yan Qi survive? I turned to descend the steps. In the next instant, the furious clatter of hooves kicked up the dim snow. A soldier atop a 1,000-mile steed bellowed at the top of his lungs, news. News! Urgent dispatch! Open the city gates at once. My feet froze in place, fingers digging into the icy snow. My trembling hand pushed at Qiuyan, go. Go hear whether his report brings good or bad news. Qiuyan plunged into the deep snow, her steps laborious yet urgent. Soon, her face flushed crimson. She returned, Miss. Miss. It's a great victory. The Yan family's army has won a great victory. They'll return to the capital soon. Only then did I collapse onto the steps, my strength drained. Looking down, I saw the sharp ice wall had long since cut through my palms. Only now did I feel the pain covering my face. I finally wept aloud. These past 3 years, I've relentlessly tested and refined my abilities on those around me, all to see if I could truly alter others' destinies. In my previous life, my younger sister, a concubine's daughter, insisted on marrying the top scholar, unaware he already had a lawful wife. When that wife came to the capital and saw her husband had climbed higher, she took her own life. The top scholar, filled with regret and resentment toward my sister, lay dormant for decades before seeking vengeance, slaughtering her and her child. In this life, I revealed the truth to him beforehand. My sister, understanding the circumstances, immediately called off the engagement and later married the third son of a general of the Middle Army. Their marriage was loving and blissful. Such events unfolded one after another, each responding to my intervention. Yet I dared not gamble with Yan Qi's life and the fates of tens of thousands of Yan family soldiers. The stakes were too high, without absolute certainty. Victory was impossible. Thus, within a mere 3 years, the Xie trading house spread across the land. Grain, cloth, medicine, and other war supplies flowed ceaselessly by sea to the front lines, filling every conceivable gap. Now, all preparations are complete. The east wind has passed. I have won my bet. On the day the Yan family army returned to court, the first snow had just cleared, leaving a clear, azure sky. When the army reached the imperial city, the emperor, personally leading his ministers, had been waiting outside the palace gates for a long time. As bells and drums sounded in unison, Yan Qi dismounted, knelt on one knee, and presented the victory report with both hands. His voice rang out with strength as he announced the joyous news of the great triumph at the frontier. His Majesty's countenance beamed with delight. He bestowed a golden goblet and decreed 3 days of citywide celebration to honor the army's valor and proclaim the nation's prosperity and the people's peace. I mingled in the crowd, longing only for a quiet glimpse of him. Unexpectedly, he turned his head and swiftly found me, his gaze locking firmly upon me. I watched him. Compared to 3 years ago, he now radiated greater valor. His face etched with the stern resolve forged in battle. Yan Qi's triumphant return shattered the military's long silence in court, propelling the Yan family once more to the pinnacle of power. I heard that after that day, many noble ladies sought to win his favor, making Yan Qi the most sought-after suitor. Even His Majesty had joked with him, saying that at 20 years old, with the borders secure, it was time to marry. I heard that at the time. He stood there in the imperial study, tall and silent, neither leaving nor speaking, as if he had a request but dared not voice it. In the end, His Majesty, finding him dull, waved him away. Mother has repeatedly fretted over my marriage, warning that if I don't wed soon, I'll become an old maid. Over the years, she has changed somewhat. If someone calls me an old maid now, she no longer echoes the insult as she once did. Instead, she rolls up her sleeves and argues fiercely with them. Late at night, a soft tapping sounded against the window lattice. Thinking a night-blinded bird had collided with the glass, I hurried to open it. What met my eyes was an enlarged face. I feigned anger. You. How dare you? I'm sorry, he murmured, head bowed in sincere apology. I couldn't find you during the day. Ah, Ning. Yan Qi gazed at me. I'm back safe and sound. I gave a half-hearted "oh." Seeing his disappointed look, I curved my lips. Yan Shaoqi, you're quite the character. Like a puppy just a month old. His tail perked up at the slightest praise. Leaning on the windowsill, his eyes shone brightly. It's your amulet that's powerful. Ah, Ning. You don't know, it saved me countless times in life or death moments. Puppies, when happy, grow bold. Ah, Ning. I want to ask His Majesty for your hand in marriage. But I don't know if you'd be willing to marry me. If you refuse, my asking would be coercion, unfair to you. I want to know. Would you? I would. I cut him off almost urgently. At this point, I might as well lay everything bare. Yan Qi, I want to marry you. I've wanted to marry you for so long, longer than you could ever imagine. After I spoke, I heard a sob. I studied him by moonlight, astonished. You're crying? He was almost laughing and crying at the same time. Like a madman who'd found a treasure. Ah, Ning. I thought I'd never have this chance in my lifetime. Later, the arranged marriage Yan Qi secured with 12 military merit scrolls became the talk of the town. Everyone discussed nothing but the Yan family's dowry, which stretched across several streets. The procession carrying the gifts on red poles formed an endless line, starting right outside the Shen family's gate. In the palace, the matrons carefully unfolded the wedding gown sent by Yan Qi, accompanied by 12 embroiderers. The dazzling tourmaline inlays were dotted with countless luminous white jade beads. The intricately carved floral-patterned gown hung with several rows of delicate silver bells. On the mist-like chiffon fabric, embroiderers' nimble fingers brought to life a pattern of mandarin ducks playing in water. The wedding gown, radiant as a sunset, seemed imbued with the brilliance of sun and moon, utterly captivating. Such a gown is not something that can be completed in mere months. The embroiderer said that the gold-threaded swirling cloud pattern on just one side alone required 4 or 5 embroiderers working together for 3 months. Later, I learned this gown had been prepared by old Lady Yan for Yan Qi, meticulously crafted over 8 long years. As the wedding date drew near, I stayed quietly at home awaiting my husband. Yan Qi had scaled the wall several times to see me secretly, but each time he came, he remained hidden behind the wall, unable to see me. When I pressed him for an explanation, he stammered. Grandmother said it's inauspicious to meet before the wedding. Hearing your voice is enough. As long as I don't see you, it shouldn't count as meeting. I fell silent. I didn't wish to see him either. Meeting before marriage was indeed inauspicious. Unexpectedly, I encountered Xie. Over these past 3 years, we'd crossed paths several times. He always sought to speak with me, but I chose to ignore him. What was truly strange was that 3 years had passed. Yet Xie still hadn't married Zhuang Weiniang. Only then did I notice Xie's startling transformation. Though clearly the same age as me, strands of white had crept into his thick hair. His gaze, fixed on me, held the intensity of a predator. His question froze me in place. Ning, you returned 3 years ago too, didn't you? I remained silent, unwilling to answer. He seized my wrist. Answer me. Is it true? A bitter laugh escaped him. I should have seen it coming. Why did you break off the engagement? Why did your father rise so rapidly? Why did Yanqi survive? It was you, wasn't it? You orchestrated all of this. These past 3 years. It wasn't just my father who ascended to the second highest position. Xie, leveraging knowledge from his past life, now sat firmly in a position of power, equal to my father. Xie, I don't understand what you're saying. I refused to admit it. Admitting this brought me no benefit. Secrets should remain locked within the heart. But he stubbornly pressed on. Why? Why did you agree to break off the engagement? I countered. And why did you assume I wouldn't agree? Xie declared with certainty. Because you love me. You love me so deeply. You couldn't possibly agree. Indeed. In my past life, it was that fleeting resemblance that first drew me to him. I sought to please him constantly, doing everything a lover would do. I smiled faintly. To kill, one must first destroy the heart, but Xie, I never loved you. Hear me clearly, never. As the words fell, Xie's pupils flinched. His mouth hung half open, yet not a single word escaped. His face was etched with shock and utter disbelief. His hands clenched unconsciously into fists, fingertips turning slightly white from the pressure. He froze in place, as if struck by a sudden thunderbolt. Without another word, without a single glance back, I turned and walked away with steady, composed steps. Xie was acting somewhat out of character, but with my wedding day approaching, I had no intention of dwelling on his behavior. That day, following custom, I went to Jian Temple to fulfill a vow. Midway through the journey, the carriage suddenly jolted. Before I could cry out, a sharp pain shot through my neck, and I fell unconscious. Awaking from a hazy slumber, I found myself lying in an elegantly furnished bedroom, surveying the unfamiliar surroundings. A creeping sense of confinement and dread washed over me. Unexpectedly, my limbs were unbound. I struggled to sit up, a dull ache in the back of my head making me groan softly. Soft footsteps drew near. Scanning the room hastily, I snatched an exquisite porcelain vase from beside the bed and concealed it behind my back. The sound grew clearer until the figure came into view. Xie, clad in a dark green robe, appeared like a specter returned from the underworld, sending a chill down my spine. Do you know? He asked, lifting my chin with a gentle gaze. We had a child. His name was Yuer. When I died, he was just 5 years old, snow white and adorable, with eyes like yours and a mouth like yours too. I don't understand what you're saying. What exactly do you want? I searched for an opening while deflecting his questions. Ning, stop pretending. You've been reborn with all your memories intact. Haven't you? His smile was desperate, numb, and agonized. I haven't. You know? My memories stopped at the year we were married. I remember nothing of the 5 years that followed. I thought I despised you, so I rushed to annul our marriage the moment I awoke. But I never imagined those 5 years would make me fall in love with you, even die shielding you from a poisoned arrow. Heaven has been so unfair to me. Ah, Ning. I refuse to accept this. Xie Yunqi pressed his forehead against mine, his body trembling uncontrollably from extreme agony. His hands clasped my face tightly, as if that alone could ease the bone-deep pain. At this point, I only gave a faint, bitter laugh. Mercilessly exposing him, you remember everything? Then you must also recall how you secretly kept a mistress behind my back, even pushing the child I carried for 10 months onto her? Xie Yunqi, your love is so cheap it makes me sick. I knew I was wrong. He cut me off. Pain etched on his face. I knew I was wrong. That day, I intended to confess to you. I wanted to send her away. So from then on, just the three of us would be together. But before I could speak, everything came to an abrupt halt. Ning, I don't love her. I just felt a bit of resentment at first. You are the only one I love. Since the Donglin hunt, you alone have occupied my heart. The Donglin hunt, hard to believe he still remembers. That day, his horse was sabotaged by the opposing side, plunging him into the ravine. After 2 full days of searching, even the Emperor's troops withdrew. I went alone, descending the narrow path at the cost of nearly my own life. I found him barely clinging to life, fed him my own blood, and barely kept him alive. My limbs grew numb as weariness from past and present lives washed over me. Don't you understand yet? Achi. Those 2 simple words sent Xie Yunqi reeling, his arms dropping limp. He stared at me in disbelief, clear tears streaming down his cheeks. When we were together, when we made love, you only gazed into my eyes because they resemble his? What do you take me for? A substitute for Yanqi? Ha 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 ha. Achi. Achi. 3 years. And I never once considered it. I shook my head. You are not a substitute. No one can replace him. But you should be grateful. It was precisely because of those eyes that I could forgive you so many things without reservation. You're lying. Xie Yunqi's tearful laughter froze, his expression returning to normal. You're just angry I called off the engagement. And furious about Zhuang Weining. I was foolish. I sent her away a year ago. I can marry you. I promise. This lifetime will hold no one else. Only you, me, and Yuer. At this point, he suddenly smiled. That was our child. He was so well behaved. He must be waiting to be reborn as our child again. Don't you miss him at all? Xie Yunqi seemed to have lost his mind, seizing a moment when he pulled back. I kicked him away. The shattered tiles had long freed the rope binding my hands. Without hesitation, I dashed toward the door. Xie Yunqi snapped to attention, lunging to grab me. The next instant, the door burst open from outside. Blinding sunlight flooded in as a towering figure swept me into his arms, holding me tight as I lunged forward. My hands clasped his waist. He jerked his leg up, sending Xie Yunqi crashing into the wall behind us. Thud. I could feel Yanqi's chest heaving, a flash of savagery in his eyes. I tried to speak, but he cut me off. Yanqi's eyes were bloodshot as he gritted out. Don't be afraid. I'll kill him now. Wait for me. I hurriedly pulled at him. I'm fine. Killing him now, with his current status, is not wise. Don't do anything foolish. Xie Yunqi was now the Emperor's right-hand man, backed by countless networks of influence. If we faltered here, Yanqi's past would be destroyed. Over there, Xie Yunqi had already risen from the ground. Leaning against the wall, he wiped the blood from his lips with his sleeve. Yanqi pushed me behind him. Though a warrior, his family had steered him toward the imperial examinations in his youth. He understood these matters better than I. Yet he could never tolerate my being harmed. Revenge was inevitable. So I stopped trying to restrain him. As long as Xie Yunqi lived, nothing else mattered. Yanqi moved with lightning speed. With a flick of his sword, He severed the tendons in Xie Yinqi's right hand. As we left, Xie Yinqi sat on the ground, his long hair disheveled, blood staining his clothes. He laughed wildly. Yanqi, if you don't kill me today, you'll regret it someday. Ah, Ning, I'll wait for the day you're cast aside like an old shoe. Then you'll know that only I will never abandon you. He understood Shen Ning too well. Her heart was too pure, even the slightest taint would disgust her. He also understood men of this world, none could resist new allure. None truly believed in vows of eternal devotion. None would steadfastly guard one person. Only he, having possessed, lost, and regretted, could grasp the bitterness of too late. Only he would learn to cherish and treasure. He waited eternally for that day. That day dawned with faint light, the horizon just turning the color of a fish's belly. Red candles burned brightly, filling the house with festive cheer. Inside and out, the mansion was adorned with lanterns and decorations. The sound of silk and bamboo instruments lingering in the air. The courtyard buzzed with voices. The constant chatter of welcoming and sending off guests. Maids and servants streamed in like fish swimming in formation. Inside the house, all but my mother and me, dressed in our finest, had departed. She held my hand, tears welling and then stopping. My Ning, your wish is finally granted. I embraced her, resting my cheek against her shoulder. Ning will be happy. Mother. A question that had never been answered. Yet I had known the answer long ago. Mother, do you know what love at first sight feels like? Mother knew. Of course she knew. In her own youth, she too had met that person. Yet they remained bound by convention, one wedded into a noble house, the other retreating to a life of seclusion. Their lives parted as if death had severed them forever. Inside the room, crimson candles burned brightly, their flickering light illuminating the festive warmth filling the space. Yanqi sat upright on the bedside, clad in brocade robes. His brow held the joy of a newlywed husband, yet mingled with a touch of youthful awkwardness and nervousness. He would glance up at the fiercely burning red candle, then lower his head, lightly pursing his lips as he stole glances at me. I sighed in exasperation, setting down my fan to tap his head. I'm your wife now. If you want to look, just look. Why all the sneaking around? Yanqi gave a soft "oh," then smiled blankly, his eyes fixed on me as if he could stare a hole through me. He hadn't told Ning about the recurring dream he'd been having these past days. In the dream, she ultimately married another. On her wedding day, he petitioned the emperor to return from the northern frontier, disguised as a wine-carrying cart driver. He dug up all the wine his father had buried 20 years prior and presented it. His father had said it was meant for his future bride. But he couldn't marry the one he desired. He likely wouldn't marry at all in this lifetime. So that wine would serve as his wedding gift. Fortunately, it was all a dream. When he awoke, the sky remained dim. After tossing and turning all night, from clumsy fumbling to ecstatic bliss, his wife lay nestled in his arms. Her cheeks flushed like a sleeping kitten. Her presence filled his heart so completely that dying right then would leave him with no regrets. Ning, Yanqi, having tasted the sweetness, blinked, gazed again, then drew her back into his embrace. The day I gave birth was the 20th day of the 12th lunar month, deep winter. Auspicious snow foretold a bountiful year. It was an excellent day. Exhausted and drowsy, I heard many people weeping. Among them, Yanqi cried more bitterly than anyone. The midwife was nearly in tears herself. Madam, push harder. The baby hasn't come out yet. Quickly, keep the ginseng broth flowing. We absolutely cannot let Madam lose consciousness. I sensed something was terribly wrong. With the experience of childbirth from my past life, I knew this pregnancy had been exceptionally well nourished. The baby was neither too large nor too small. It should have been an easy delivery. Until I faintly heard a voice that sent a chill through my entire body. Mother. Mother. Have you abandoned me? I'm your. Through my days. I opened my eyes to see a 5-year-old child weeping in the void, Xiaoyu. The child I'd born with Xiaoyunqi in my past life. Gritting my teeth. Tears streaming down my face. I gazed at him. Circumstances intertwine. Cause and effect align, destiny had long since shifted course. Different choices inevitably yield different outcomes. In this life, I never married Xiaoyunqi. Xiaoyu's existence was naturally erased. What does he want now? To replace my child? Or to kill me and my child? Mother. I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Please. Don't abandon me. He was only 5 back then. Though he knew some classical phrases. He was still just a child, unstable and easily led astray. Anyone could corrupt a child. Therefore, I never truly resented him. I never hated the child I carried for 10 months. But the past is buried. This life is the present. Tears welling. I shook my head at him. He wept and dissolved into thin air. Then, a newborn's cry filled the room with joyous celebration. She's given birth. She's given birth. It's a daughter. Congratulations. General. Congratulations. Madam. Now, as the snow melts and spring warms, new life begins to emerge. Xiaoyunqi's side story. As time passed, the wedding of Yanqi and Ning, once a sensation, remained a celebrated tale in the capital. Xiaoyunqi recalled his own wedding to her in a past life. Having resented the match since childhood, he hadn't even spared her a kind glance that day. Yet she still smiled, called him her husband, and invited him to share the wedding wine. Ever since learning of this marriage, Xiaoyunqi had been filled with aversion. As more and more people praised the Shen family's daughter as gentle, virtuous, and well-read, hailing her as the foremost noble lady in the capital, his loathing for her only deepened. Eventually, he came to despise her level-headedness, her knowledge of etiquette, and her perfectly measured affection, never too close, never too distant. He should have hated her. He disliked dignified, uninteresting women. Yet people change. When he realized he had changed, a sudden alarm rang in his heart. At that moment, Zhuang Weining, freshly divorced, seemed the perfect choice. He tried to use her to prove that the person in his heart remained his former beloved. But she seemed unconcerned. Even knowing he kept a mistress, she calmly made plans for him. Shall I bring her back to the estate? I'll choose an auspicious day, and she'll enter as a concubine. He roared, how could she become another man's concubine? Don't you dare humiliate her. Yet he didn't know why he was furious. Later, he erred again, he corrupted Yuer. She loved that child so deeply. Yet he hurt her time and again. That child was a good soul. Had it not been for him, the boy would never have turned against his own mother for the sake of outsiders. By the time he realized the damage and sought to mend it, all was lost. He was reborn, believing it marked a fresh start to choose the right path. Little did he know it was merely the edge of another abyss. At 21, Ning married Yanqi. At 31, Yanqi still had only Ning. He waited endlessly for Yanqi to tire of Ning, for him to abandon her after using her. Then he could storm before them. See? I told you so. Men are all not scum. Only what you can't have is precious. But I'm different. I've learned my lesson. I'll cherish you more. But it never happened. For 10 years, Yanqi loved her as deeply as ever. He didn't want to hear it. Yet the capital buzzed with tales of their devotion. Like how General Yan once crouched beneath the cloud-filled pavilion for 2 hours just to buy his wife a pastry. Or how, after every battle, he'd carve their names onto a stone monument, adding the words for all eternity. Qi always guarded against him, as if he were a thief, even when they met by chance. A single extra glance from him would make Qi look as if he wanted to gouge out his eyes. Qi remembered that year when the snow fell especially heavy. Ning gave birth to a snow-white, adorable daughter for Qi. Later, he held that child. She stared at him with wide, open eyes. The child bore Ning's likeness so perfectly, a miniature version of her standing before him. His eyes stung, and he nearly shed tears. Back then, he was consumed by jealousy. Ning had rejected him, and now she rejected Yue too. His Yue, this time. He hadn't even been granted the chance to come into this world. The end.